All right. Hello. Hello, and welcome to the Raptors Republic post-game show, where we are live right after the Raptors fall to the Boston Celtics. I'm your host, Oren Weisfeld. Unfortunately, Sahal couldn't be here today, but we have the Raptors Republic, one of the czars behind the scenes, Zarar. Hey. That's high praise for yourself, man. If you're Bembry, you're a pretty solid, no mistake kind of guy. Is that how you are in life?
Bembry, man, I wish. I think Bembry's got hustle. Like he hustles at everything. I think if every Raptor had Bembry's like heart and hustle and spirit, I think we'd be in a better position. Not necessarily all his talent, but all the intangibles that he brings. I think we all need a little bit of Bembry inside us.
Yeah. Also, I like the hair. Nice hairdo.
Well, yeah.
So, Raptors fell in this one to the Celtics, obviously. They made a legit comeback late there in the fourth. They brought it to within, I think, 5 points at one point. Siakam was really aggressive. They were doing some really good things. And then just a lot of bad in the span of like 1 minute. Like, what was it fatigue for you, or was it something else in terms of the Raptors kind of losing that comeback? What do you think happened there?
Fatigue? I don't know, man. I don't think it was fatigue. I mean, I guess a little bit of fatigue because you're playing on back to back, so fatigue is going to be a factor. But it's not like the Celtics were like just hanging around, just not sweating. I mean, I think they were fatigued too a little bit. I think much more importantly than fatigue, I think it came down to the Raptors really. So, a couple of points for me, right? Number one, we got to run our offense through Pascal Siakam a lot more. I know like he struggled against the Celtics, but they really don't have any matchup for him. They do put Brown on him and they put Tatum, but they don't usually always put Tatum on him. They put Brown or like Ojale or one of those guys, and he can take them no problem. I don't think we milked that avenue nearly enough than what we needed to. And on the defensive side, what are we asking our big men to do? Like I have a couple of clips lined up, man, where like maybe I can just play it. Maybe you could just get into the clips and I can kind of show like what exactly I'm talking about. Let me pull it up. I have a whole folder called Baines' shit, which I have to go
Yeah,
into.
we can get into that because I also wanted to talk about those pick and rolls specifically with Baines, and but why don't you go
let me
first?
let me first show you good Baines. Let me show you
Yeah,
what Baines needs to be doing on every possession and what you actually get. I don't have an actually get clip. I only have the what he should be doing. And this is a possession. Hang on, let me just hit this button. Blah 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 blah. Okay, so here's I think it's Kemba bringing the ball up the fort. You have Van Vliet there, so Lowry switches on him. Baines, okay, doubles Tatum nicely, nice double. Okay, strips, good defense, sticks with him, rotates back to where he needs to be. Okay, Tatum goes in, and he contests Tatum's jumper. Raps get the rebound. That is the type of movement that is required of Aaron Baines whenever he is put in there against a team like the Celtics. And as much as you like make fun of him and all that, he's capable of that in spurts. He's capable of that in spurts. Asking him to do this like for more than like 30 minutes a game or whatever he's playing, too much to ask. And once you do that, he obviously gets fatigued because he is, 84 years old. And then he does stuff like this. And this to me, this is like a nice little pick and roll or whatever, screen and roll. Lowry and Baines doing it. He comes like, nice bounce pass, just blows the
oh yeah,
layup. Gets blocked by like the underside of the backboard or some shit like that. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, Baines isn't shit. It's just we're asking him to do things that he's just not able to do for a consistent period of time.
yeah. So I don't know. Do you have that clip of Could you play that clip of Tatum putting Baines in the pick and roll, and then it led to the Pritchard three?
If like a Pritchard threes, unfortunately, but
Okay, well, I don't know if you can find it, but on that point, like the first clip you showed, I think is a good use of Baines for sure. Like he can kind of he's smart positionally where he can get out double a guy if he has to, like step up into a Tatum, then run back and tag his man. So I like him in those situations for sure. But the problem is Tatum specifically was doing this a lot today, is
Yeah.
he was just calling over Baines's man and putting him in the pick and
I
roll.
got it. I got it. Here, we can watch it. We can watch it right now.
Perfect.
Here it is.
Perfect. So
Let me roll it.
this is the problem with having Baines on the floor, is that teams will all season teams have targeted him to the point where he's become unplayable, and Boucher has had to come in for him to basically save these runs that the Raptors have been kind of getting killed on. And like this one that we're about to play, it's just a good example of like him trying to do too much. So he has to kind of choose his battles, because his like stop and start time is really slow. Like he tries to do too much sometimes. So this was an example where I thought, like, I think he needs to just hang back. They're not playing a drop. So I'm not saying he needs to completely like drop, but he needs to hang back and let Tatum pull up for a mid-range jumper, because that's okay. But what he's doing is he's challenging the shot too high.
Yeah.
Tatum is easily blowing by him, and then the help is coming, and then it's an open three. And that was happening a lot. And that's the reason, Boucher. We have another clip we'll show later of Boucher in a pretty similar position. And what he does really well is he'll hang back. I mean, he's lucky because he has the length to contest shots, even if he's hanging
Let's just
back.
play it. Let's just play it. And this is the Boucher block, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Here you go. Let me just roll it. Let me roll it.
Boucher kind of has he's fortunate to have more length, obviously, than a guy like Baines. And so he can kind of hang back a little more in these situations in the pick and roll. He doesn't need to step up to a shooter in case they pull up. But he hangs back smartly enough to tag his roller. And then at the same time, if the shooter in this case, Jaylen Brown, no, let's see. Okay, so Peyton Pritchard. See, if the shooter in this case wants to go up, I'm not sure if that's the one I was talking about, but either way, what I'm trying to say is Boucher, he can hang back but still contest the shot, and Baines just can't do that. So Baines kind of needs to he needs to pick his battles. Like, are you challenging up at the 3-point line, or are you dropping back a little bit more and letting them take that pull-up shot? Because him trying to do too much, like we saw in that one clip, is just a recipe for disaster, because a guy like Tatum can blow by him every single time and then find open shooters. And that's what happened. So let's go ahead.
I mean, yeah. I think you nailed it, man. We're asking too much of the guy, and it's like it's kind of fun to kind of just like make fun of him and all that with the Baines fan club and all that. But at the end of the day, we are asking a guy to do just a more than he is capable of for too long of a period.
Yeah, like he did play 20 minutes tonight, I think, which I agree. It's too much. Like last night, we talked about tonight being a good example of a game where the Raptors can maybe play smaller, because Boston just doesn't have those like post up centers. But without OG, it's hard to do without OG, even though I think Stanley Johnson's kind of a capable backup. And B, maybe they would have done that if they weren't getting killed on the offensive boards all game, right? Like that was a huge problem for the Raptors, is that playing small requires like such a level of focus and like gang rebounding, basically, to not get killed and to have those other advantages. But if you're just going to give up like as many offensive rebounds as you do, you're going to lose these type of games.
Like,
right?
I would love to know how many teams win a game when they're down like 49-32. That's minus 17 on the glass. That is very difficult to overcome. And the Raptors did shoot fairly well. 49% it's a good shoot. They had a decent offensive game overall, but defensively they really can't. They couldn't really defend without fouling at some point, and the refs got a little chippy at the end. But yeah, defending without fouling has been a problem. And when you have Tatum with the ball, like his passing just kills us. It's not even his scoring, but when they even the clip we played earlier where they seek out the Tatum on Van Vliet mismatch and they operate from there. Like he may not score on those plays. He may not even get the assist, but the Raptors are almost forced to help every time, and Boston just knows how to pick apart. And as simple as it sounds, man, their big men are just taller than ours. They're able to see over us, therefore they're able to navigate their offense better. It's like I honestly think this is not a complex basketball analysis. It's just like these guys have visibility over us. That's why I prefer guys like Stanley Johnson to play more in these matchups, because I think they just hamper Tatum a little bit more. Like, they may not bring the same offense, but they do hamper him a little bit more. And one thing about Tatum is that he adapts really quickly. If you put the same guy on him for a long period, he'll figure out how to beat him. You almost have to like constantly treat him like you almost like Kobe, man. Like, you never put the same guy on Kobe all the time. You threw different looks at him. And with Tatum, I feel we sort of it's a little stale, our approach towards Tatum.
Yeah, I mean, Tatum's just such a shifty player that he can find open space in the floor, and when he gets there, he's a threat. So the help comes, and that's kind of the Raptors' whole strategy. And like, some games it's gonna work when you overhelp on Tatum, and some games you're gonna just have Semi Ojeleye and Peyton Pritchard kill you from the 3-point line. Like, the Raptors, I think, the Celtics outscored the Raptors by more than 30 from behind the arc. They shot like 56% from three. And it wasn't like one of those games where you were like, oh, the Raptors got unlucky and they just shot worse. Like, no, the Celtics had so many good looking threes that were just completely open compared to us. That is not all like, yeah, I'm surprised a little bit that Ojeleye hit that many threes, but I'm not that surprised given the looks that they had, that they outscored us that much from three. It was just like, I don't know. It's just, especially, so one, in the pick and roll, that's when we were getting torn apart. And the other way they were getting torn apart is off these offensive rebounds, when the defense is scrambling and then guys just pitch it out for a quick, like, open three. It was pretty rough.
I think our pick and roll defense just got progressively worse in this game. Like, it started off like okay, but as soon as like we get a little tired, and the fatigue or whatever kicks in, the game gets a little deep. It just gets even harder to like deal with physical guys like Tatum, who loves to like brush off you. Like, they're not guys who just, like, even though they're like superstars, they play the game in almost like a physical, dirty kind of way. Like, they don't shy away from contact. Like, they don't just shoot threes. They go in the post. They do some of the dirty stuff. Like, Tatum loves to go into traffic and cause havoc, right? And I think Siakam, if you compare him to Tatum, is able to do that as well. He's not as good as a passer as Tatum, but I think the same advantages Tatum brings to the Celtics when he has the ball and he's in rhythm on offense are the same things Siakam can bring to the Raptors if we just feed him more and more and encourage him to pass. I really think like Tatum is like a parallel weapon to Siakam.
I couldn't hear you. You cut off. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Oh, okay, I hear you again. Can you repeat the last point?
I'm saying Tatum and Siakam are like basically this. Whatever Tatum does for the Celtics, Siakam can do for the Raptors. The only thing missing is Siakam's passing ability, and I think that can come if we just encourage it more and run the offense through him a lot more, frankly.
Yeah, so I agree to an extent. I think the one area that you're missing is the ball handling. Like, when Siakam goes into those heavy traffic areas, he gets stripped a lot more just because his handle is kind of high and it's not that good with the left hand. And Tatum has a much tighter handle. But in terms of running stuff through Siakam, I agree. Like, the Raptors' offense has been good this year, so it's hard to complain. But if Siakam had the same like control that Tatum does, where he can just like run as many pick and rolls as he wants each game, I think he would probably be like a 25, 26 point per game scorer, right? Oh, your video okay. Yeah.
Siakam. Oh, good strip by Tatum. Van Vliet. Siakam. Oh, good strip by Tatum. Van Vliet. Siakam.
Sorry, I don't think my audio was coming there.
Oh, good
so
strip.
this play I'm playing with Siakam is essentially the problem. Like, we're seeing the problem at this moment where Siakam's dribbling is holding the Raptors offense back in these sort of situations. And I get it,
Oh, good
but I
strip.
think we still have to go to it because that's the only way he's going to develop and maybe turn
Quickly.
into a Tatum type passer.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Like this season, I thought was supposed to be about seeing what each guy could do, like offensively, like what's the like threshold for each of the core guys. And it kind of started off that way, and now I think it's reverted back a little bit, maybe to um I'm like Kyle Lowry and I want to win games, and like that's fine. But like you said, I agree that Pascal should probably get a little bit more of the offense, especially in games like this. Like he was so good. So I want to like talk a little bit about this game wasn't that complicated when you look at like the roster matchups. The wing advantage is to Celtics because OG Anunoby's out. You have Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum against basically Pascal and
Lowry.
like Bembry and
See,
Norm Powell. So the Celtics had the wing advantage, but Pascal was really good and he was really aggressive, especially late in the game. He was getting to his post up and just consistently scoring. So the Raptors, I thought, if they wanted to win, had to kind of go at their guards because Kemba's coming off an injury. He does not look good. Peyton Pritchard and Edwards, who played in the first half, are both not good defenders. They're small and they're not strong. So I thought, okay, if Fred and Kyle can get going and Norm to an extent and win the guard battle, then you have a good chance. And like Kyle was great, but Norm and especially Fred, like the Celtics really have Fred's number. That's dating back to the playoffs and in these couple games. What do you think that is? What are you seeing from Fred just struggling against this team?
I've written about this a lot and even talked about it. I think it is the length. I think the simplest explanation is the right explanation here. Their length really disrupts him, and he also has to work a lot harder on defense against the Celtics because he's guarding Tatum usually, which is a weird.
Usually OG is, but this game he was.
But no, but even when he's playing, when OG's there, the Raptors Tatum does guard Fred and vice versa a lot, even when OG's there. I think that was the case in the postseason as well, for whatever reason.
I think that they switch it. They're not afraid to switch it, and the Celtics will just go to it.
Right, and even in the clips I played earlier, like he's the default guy guarding him, and that's got to take its toll on his offense. If you got to worry about Tatum on defense on like 50% of the possessions he's there, that's going to hurt your offense, and it's not surprising, and that all contributes to why the Celtics are such a freaking hard matchup for us. But man, but I think Siakam, I think we talked a little bit about him. I think he's just improving overall. But Powell, you mentioned there. It's just good to see him coming. And I was watching the Celtics feed here, and they talked about like should Powell start when OG comes back, and I feel yes. I think if starting is what keeps him going, then that's something we can't just go back to because OG we know is comfortable coming off the bench. Like he's done it before. Like he's like it doesn't seem to affect his rhythm. I'm not saying like one is better than the other. Henceforth they must start, but one is just seems more comfortable starting. So why not give him that comfort if it's in the end it's all the same?
I disagree. Mostly because OG is like their best one-on-one defender, and so I think like there's so many superstars in the NBA that it just makes sense for OG to check them from the start of the game. And also he makes a lot of sense as like the fourth option kind of. But I also think there's a case to be made for Powell, but I don't know. Like obviously the only way to do that then is to start small, which I kind of like. I was watching the Yahoo show with Will and Alex and Joseph from The Score. They had a new episode today, and they were saying like maybe the option is just to start small with OG at the 5, and then Boucher is still your backup center, and then Baines becomes like this like niche guy against like post up centers that you only play in like specific matchups, like kind of like Alex Len was at the start of the season. And honestly, I think based on how everyone's played so far this season, like that makes the most sense. OG has to be okay with that. Like he has to be okay, obviously, like with starting the game at the 5 and whatever, playing those heavy minutes. But I think that's the only way to kind of keep Powell in the starting lineup because OG is just too good to come off the bench, I think.
I mean, and that's what they were talking about as well. That's the configuration option. They were thinking of Baines going to the bench. How deep he goes into the bench, we probably don't know. But we do know at this point of the season that Baines is not does not give us the defensive comfort that we need. Like, he doesn't give us enough cover. So something needs to change here. And as I was watching this game, man, and seeing how bad he really is, and whenever he's in the game, how vulnerable we are, is like, at the trade deadline, you got to ask yourself, do you want to win some games? Like, forget about like contention or, East NBA Finals return. Just, do you care about winning games this season? If you care even a little bit about winning games, just not contention, just margin. Yeah, I like to win some games. You have to do something about the center position, because the way it currently is, like, we're gonna get slaughtered in any playoff against any opponent, any reasonably good opponent.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. At this point, the Raptors are just a average kind of middling Eastern team, because there's so many bad matchups for them out there. Look at like Giannis. Like, can you imagine Baines trying to be like the bottom, like, recovery guy when Giannis is like coming down the lane? Like, that's really not gonna go well.
Man, there was a clip. I think I could even play it maybe, where it was like I think Lowry was had the ball, and he was like running down in the break, and maybe if I can find it here, I'm not sure if I
Was
can
this
find
the
it.
turning point play?
No, this is not the turning point. I mean, every
Oh,
Baines play is a turning point, really, in some sense. I can't find it right now, but it's on our Twitter.
can you find the turning point play? The
I'll,
Baines
I'll
miss.
I'll put it up. I'll put it up. But it's the one where like Lowry's driving, and like he notices that, like, he's driving in transition, and he notices that, oh, maybe I can, like, because the defense kind of collapses on him. He wants
Oh
to pull
yeah,
it back for a three, but he
yeah,
looks around, and it's like Baines. So he like
yeah.
reluctantly passes the ball to him, and it just goes nowhere.
No, I remember that play, and like that's one of the problems with the Raptors' transition offense, is that the trail threat has changed from Gasol or Ibaka to Baines now in the starting lineup, and Baines he's completely lost confidence in that jumper. He was shooting it at least at the beginning of the season. Now he's not even shooting the three, and yeah, like when the ball, it's not that it stops when it goes to him, because he does a pretty good job of like moving it on, but he's just not a threat. Defenses are sagging so far off him. His plus minus is so bad. All of the starters pretty much have better plus minuses with Boucher than Baines. And it's like gone to the point where if this was a young player without like a real reputation in the NBA, he would, I think, be at the back of Nurse's bench. But because he has like more of like a, what's it called, a reputation or whatever, he's still getting time to kind of get back to his old form, I think. But based just on the way he's played this season, he does not deserve to be a starter. He doesn't even really deserve to have big rotation minutes. Like, if we can show the kind of Raptors Republic turning point play, if you will, I think it's the Baines missing like a layup, getting, I think, blocked by Tice. Yeah, anyways, this was like after the Raptors had come back to make it close, and then it was first Baines and then Powell, both of them just being really like not going up strong under the basket twice in a row. And like one of them I think got blocked, and the other one I think kind of like oh yeah, Baines kind of got fouled a little bit, I thought, on this play by Tice from behind, but still, like, dunk it. Like, he could have dunked the ball, and he just like went up soft, and that was the game. It was him and Powell both missing layups under the basket, and um yeah, it felt like the Raptors just didn't have like that focus that they have sometimes towards the end of games. In the last few games, this game, they just made some dumb mistakes.
Point. So this is the Siakam, posting people up, but nobody actually cutting, and this was like very frustrating. So he's gonna take a smaller guy into the block here. It's Pritchard. Nobody's cutting. Nobody's cutting. He has to pass it back out. Goes back in. Nobody's cutting. Nobody's cutting. Nobody's cutting. Nobody's cutting. Bembry with a mild cut, not really. And the Raptors end up like just, I don't know. I think they're passing it out. He gets like a look there. But that initial set where he's dribbling the ball and getting guys in, just there's no movement there, and we have to get better at that, especially in the fourth quarter. You can probably get away with it in the first three, but when things tighten up like here, we have to be better just positionally and just moving without the ball there.
Yeah, I think the Raptors in general have done a better job this year, cutting off the ball with Siakam, but definitely depends on the personnel too. Like if Boucher's in the game and Bembry, they do a good job, but like certain guys like Baines, um, Freddie, those guys don't really do any of that. Before we move on, really quickly, like to thank our sponsor, Arif Qureshi. Qureshi, thank you for sponsoring the show. We appreciate it. Yeah. Anything else? What should we move on to here?
I mean, Boucher, I think deserves a little bit of talk because just overall, the guy has been all you could ask for and then some. Like the how hard he works on the defensive glass after giving it all his off on offense. This dude is. I made a video on YouTube about this guy, like how his half court offensive movement opens up so many things for the Raptors, and he expends a lot of energy there. Then he comes back on defense. He's always going up against guys who are at least like 25 to 30 pounds bigger than him, and he's competing. His compete level just never drops. And this guy was supposed to be like our backup, right? He was supposed to be essentially our backup big. So really, if you think about it from preseason, we've had an entire position in our starting lineup which has been voided, and our backup big is now playing starter minutes. We just have to do something about that. And just I don't know. I don't have enough praise for Chris Boucher.
Yeah, no, I'm also I'll have a piece actually on RaptorsRepublic.com tomorrow about Chris Boucher, because it seems like this is the season that he's put everything together. Like he always had these intriguing offensive skills, and this season it's just all come together for him. And yeah, like you said, he's jumped from that guy who was expected maybe to get backup center minutes to the nominal starting five. And I think the Raptors aren't that far away from kind of being a real Eastern threat if they just had a starting center. And then Boucher, like if Boucher was more able to feast against like backup bigs, which like his frame like is more suitable for, I think the Raptors would just match up so much better. But yeah, like so he's always had like a really good ability to cut. Like when Kyle will get in the paint really deep, Boucher is like always the guy to like cut and get to the rim. But what's impressed me most this season is like on top of the fact that he's shooting really well from three, he is attacking closeouts like with a handle I've never seen from him. So like sometimes he'll get it and a defender will come out because they have to defend him there, and he'll like pump fake, or he'll just like put it on the floor. And he's had a couple times this season where he'll just pull up from the elbow, and it's like, where was this guy? Like I've never seen this. And if you're doing that, that makes you so useful as an off-ball player too, that you can be on the floor in all types of situations. Like the ball doesn't always need to go through Boucher, pick and rolls, pick and pops. He can also just spot up. And then if the ball gets kicked out to him, he can either shoot or kind of put it on the floor and make a play. He's also been really good in the short roll. Like, I don't know if you've seen those clips, but like him getting the pass in the short roll and then just firing a pass over to the like corner shooter. I never knew he had that.
Yeah, and he's not. That's the thing. He's not a guy who like Baines is a dude who, if you run a pick, and I hate comparing people to Baines, but that's all I got, right? Like when you run a pick and roll with Baines, it's a one-way street. Like you pass the ball to Baines, he's gonna go up for some weird shot or some weird angle, and hopefully he makes it. With Boucher, it's more than that. Like he's able to catch it, do something, and if things don't work out or he sees a situation which requires something different, he's able to like think on his feet and make that pass. And again, I don't know why it all comes back to like just shitting on on Baines, but it's just like maybe Boucher is looking so good partially because we're comparing him to Baines, and he's not that good.
No, I think honestly
I'm joking.
he's filled the Ibaka role really well. And like on top of actually like doing a lot of the like excelling at the same like rim running, 3-point shooting, like that kind of stuff that Ibaka excelled at. I'll just take a minute to appreciate Boucher. So Boucher is kind of the one player on the team who's consistently just like fun and makes like crazy plays that you're just like, what? And I appreciate that.
What did you think of like Pritchard? Like, why is Pritchard killing us? Like, what is it about our defense that leaves Pritchard? Like, what does he have today? Like, last time he had, like, I think more. He had 20 points today, 6 of 8 from 3. How is he getting such clean looks? Like, I have an idea, but like, what's your take on this dude?
I think it's just like the way Nurse coaches has always been, we're going to take the superstars out of the game and let the role players beat us. And so they really help on guys like Jalen and Jason. Um, the help comes if it's in the pick and roll, they'll double them sometimes. And they're betting that guys like Semi and Peyton Pritchard won't hit those shots. Obviously, I think if you ask Nurse, he'd like them to be more contested. Like he'd like guys to come out and contest those 3-point shots way more than they were today. But in general, I think that's just a strategy. And it feels like it feels like it's in the scouting report now in certain teams. Like the coaches are saying, listen, like the Raptors are not going to let Jason Tatum beat us. You're going to have to be the guy to like hit some threes because that's just so be ready for that. And it feels like maybe that's part of the reason that like the Raptors, like in the last couple seasons, teams like shot a really low percent from 3 compared to the rest of the league. And this season, their teams are shooting like pretty average from 3 against them. So maybe it's part of the scout and teams that role players are just more prepared to have a bigger role against the Raptors, I guess.
I'll play this clip. This is with how Kemba hit or Walker hit that. Yeah, Kemba Walker hit that three. And what I want to show here as this will play is like the need for Fred to drop down and help on the drive because Baines is there, right? Because this three doesn't happen if Fred doesn't drop down. But because you can't really trust Baines in a one-on-one situation against a guard, you sort of have to send help from the perimeter. And when you do that, you get shots like this. And I think if you look at the Pritchard threes, which I don't have the video of like cut out, but if you look at them, they come from a very similar type of situation where you see our big against their guard in some sort of one-on-one situation or one-on-two or some sort of help dropping down. And you have to send additional help, which leaves people open. And Pritchard, at least two or three of his threes in the first half were just because we sent a guy because our big men needed help.
Yeah, and sometimes I feel like that's not necessary when a guy like Fred does that. Like, but it's a good point on Baines because the trust isn't there, right? Like that's one thing that this team had in the past that they don't have this year is just like much more trust. And Fred and Kyle did this at 1.2 in this game that led to a different open three. I forget when, but there's times when it seems like they're doubling just for the sake of doubling, and Boston's too smart to do that against. I think they're kind of just getting killed. Jonathan in the comments is saying Toronto calls Boston daddy. I just want to remind him really quickly that the Raptors won like 8 straight against Boston before the bubble. Where they lost and then they lost in the playoffs. So I remember Jaylen Brown being like, I've literally never beat you guys since I came into the league until the bubble. And he's been in the league like 4 years now. So I'm not sure that's a very accurate take, Jonathan. Anyways, any final thoughts before we wrap it up
Dropping
here?
the stats on people. Holy shit. I mean, I guess in the post Ibaka, or not even post Ibaka, I mean, yeah, we lost a playoff series to them. Big deal. If we played a playoff series again today, would we lose? Probably, unless we make some sort of move at the trade deadline. But hey, one more thing I kind of want to just want to touch on a little. Bembry off the bench. And we kind of joked about it earlier. I think I was on mute the entire time when I spoke about Bembry. Like Bembry is really like he's not a shooting liability. Like the reason that he wasn't getting minutes early in the season, I thought was maybe because he's not providing enough offense for you. But I don't see the offense necessarily suffering when he's in the game. Like defensively, he gives you a bit of a bump. and he's able to like fit into whatever the hell is going on the floor pretty seamlessly. It's not like you have to like you're giving up too much with him on the floor. So I like the minutes Nurse is giving him. I thought we could have tried something a little different. Maybe I don't know why Davis got so much playing time today, to be honest with you. I thought maybe he would go and try throw a little bit of different look at the Celtics, maybe even Matt Thomas, just to spread the floor out a little bit. And that really didn't happen. I'm really questioning Terrence Davis's minutes at this point. I mean, he had some good games earlier in the season, and he has some spurts here and there. But overall, his pace is just too frenetic. It's weird. His pace is frenetic, but it's the wrong pace. It's like he's out of cadence with the rest of the group, and he's always kind of at a different wavelength, and it kind of shows on the court.
Yeah, so like I had this written down because the last time we did one of these, we were talking about Nurse kind of testing out the rotations, and we were talking about Davis, and you said that you're okay with it because he's still testing things out. So I was gonna ask you your take.
I've seen enough. I've seen enough.
Good. I didn't even want to bring it up. I was gonna move past it because it frustrates me so much, and I've talked about Davis enough, I feel like. But yeah, like he has been bad this season. There's no other way to put it. Davis is a liability on the court, and the only reason he's really getting time, I guess, is because Matt Thomas is so far in the doghouse and there's injuries that he's just naturally like that guy. But it's really the one thing I can't understand about Nurse this season, like his decision making, is the Davis minutes, because it feels like he's a liability every single time he's on the court, on both ends of the floor. He keeps like, talk about Bembry and being the complete opposite type of player. Bembry just like, he fits the system so well because he's a really good decision maker. And like on the fast break, you'll really notice it, where he'll know when to make the right passes and to who. And Davis, you put him in the exact same situation. He keeps doing this thing where like he'll pass it to Boucher at like the foul line on a fast break when there's like two bodies on Boucher, and Boucher just has to like go up and hope someone fouls him or something. And like he's gotten called for a charge for it. Like, yeah, I would like to see Paul Watson or Matt Thomas come off the bench. I think ideally Malachi Flynn kind of figures out this stuff in the G League, and then once that bubble is over, he can be that guy in the Davis spot. But I agree with you. Try something else out because it hasn't been working. Like, yeah, once in a while he's going to hit a three, but other than that, he's not giving you enough otherwise to really justify
But
it.
I want to end on a positive note, because the Raptors did compete and they stayed there. It was a better showing than last time we played them. Yeah, they didn't have Marcus Smart, which is a big problem for Siakam mostly. But we didn't have OG, so let's call it an even matchup. I thought we negotiated their defense a lot better. Like, we were able, for the most part, to get pretty clean looks throughout the game, whether it be Siakam's individual play or Norm coming up. And even though Fred didn't have like a great offensive game scoring wise, I thought he set the team up fairly well. Kyle Lowry was vintage, in parts of this game. Unfortunately, Pritchard like played him even. Like, what the hell? You know what I mean? Like, you don't expect that. So there were a lot of positives. Like, if you think about overcoming the Celtics as, being able to score against them and being able to defend against them, I thought our scoring against them today was very, very good. Like, it was almost like kind of easy at times to score against their length, which is a pretty big positive the Raptors can take away from here. And defensively, I think we've talked about it, enough already, so there's no point repeating it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I think Boston, I don't really see them in that like group of like the East elite personally, just because I think their depth is so bad and Kemba looks so bad that I don't really like their team that much. But yeah, the positive for me is that I remember watching the last game, and everyone's complaint, funnily enough, was the offense, and then it was that the Raptors were only taking threes and they were living and dying by the three, and that they couldn't score in the paint. Well, today the Raptors outscored the Celtics by like 30 in the paint and got killed from the outside. But the good news is that the Raptors have figured out a lot offensively, and they're making a point to get in the paint and score, and that's I guess encouraging. But yeah, the defense has problems, and I don't think the defensive problems are gonna completely shore themselves up until there's a roster change.
I think if this season has any hope, we have to make a move at the deadline to get some sort of rebounding help. And today, I mean, as I think this is a good learning loss, like where you kind of saw where we really lack against a team we probably will have to go through in the postseason. And like what is it again? The rebounding 49-32. Like it's a little miracle that this game was as close as it was, given how dominant the Celtics were at the boards. You give a team like they had 3 more shots than us, but the possessions are probably way higher. And I also felt like the one thing that the Raptors did well was in some stretches was actually generate more turnovers than I usually expect them to. So Celtics had 18 turnovers in this game, and the Raptors were able to run it back for points, consistently somewhat in this game, which is also an encouraging sign. So it's not like they neutralize that completely. So there definitely are positives here, and psychologically speaking, I think this also does a lot for Siakam because he's had just terrible games against the Celtics. We talked about the postseason, and today he comes. Yeah, Marcus Smart isn't there, but he comes off having a pretty solid game in a stretch where he's playing pretty solid basketball. And some dude on Twitter was like, if Pascal has a poor game, he still sucks because it's against the Celtics. I'm like, oh God, please let him have a good game. So I think even from that perspective, psychologically, like I think it's a good boost for the Raptors.
Yeah, and also you look at it, it wasn't just a back-to-back. I think this was 5 games or 4 games in 7 nights for the Raptors. So it was going to be a tough game. Last game of the road trip. They're going home after this, and they have Minnesota, so that should be a slapping. But yeah, so moving on. I agree. It's good for Pascal. I think the next thing though is Fred needs to have one of those games against the Celtics, because I do look at that matchup and he's the guy who I say he needs to figure something out against this team, or else the Raptors are really going to struggle.
The only way Fred has amazing games against the Celtics, I would imagine, is if he's just bombing away from deep. Because this dude cannot get a clean look under 20 feet against this team. It's just a struggle. So he's got to have almost like an Orlando 3 type game where he's bombing from 22, 23 feet, which would open a lot of other things for the Raptors. So if I'm, if I'm looking at a strategy for getting Fred going, like I would almost just take like the counterintuitive approach is just have him shoot some threes early on and see if they go in. Because if he has that going, then a lot of other things open up. Because driving to the rim as his primary option against this team, it's pretty we have enough of a sample size at this point to say that it's going to be a struggle.
For sure. All right. Well, thank you all for listening to this live show. Please give us a like on YouTube. Help us get to 100 so that YouTube bumps this video, and subscribe to the channel. And we will be back on Sunday night after the Raptors take on the Minnesota Timberwolves and hopefully give them a walloping in the face.